Hey everyone, so I wanted to do a quick video about music NFTs, even though I'm on holiday, because this article was really interesting and I wanted to touch on a few comments and a few thoughts. So, are music NFTs dead? This was back in July the 18th, so it's not too long ago. It says it's been a tough bear market for music NFTs. This bear market seems to have gone on for way over like a year and a half. It just feels like forever. It says, but the possibilities here are just the beginning. Because if you think about it, technology is still advancing. Some companies may still be interested. You may still have some investors want to make money. So it goes on to say that Cooper Turley, now, for those that don't know, Cooper Turley is a really, really well-known person in the music space. He's from America and he's always been an advocate for music NFTs. He's always invested in music NFTs. He managed to raise a fund for his own music NFT label, which he's had a lot of success with, which is great to see. But even he is concerned. Now, in that particular week, Cooper actually put on a comment and basically arguing that music NFTs had failed. So the actual comment was music NFTs failed because the hype did not meet reality. Collecting music needs to be free and accessible at scale. Collecting music needs to be free. Obviously, he's not a music producer. It's not realistic for every artist to promise tickets, merch, and meet and greets. Correct, in some respects. Or for songs to cost thousands of dollars. True, particularly in my case. Music NFTs walked so open editions could run. So that's a real kick in the teeth for me because Cooper has been inspirational in this space and he's always advocated for music NFTs till now. Now, I personally struggled with this tweet or X, whatever you want to call it, because for me, the fact that he stated that collecting music needs to be free, I strongly disagree against that. I've spent my entire life producing music and composing music, and for someone to say that it should be free, I completely disagree with it. For someone that's collecting, of course they're going to want it to be free. But for the musician, I completely disagree with that statement. And the third sentence about saying it's not realistic for every artist to promise tickets, merch and meet and greets, that's correct. But musicians only go into this space when they're ready to go into this space. And when they're ready to go into this space, they'll have merch, whether it's one CD, whether it's a cassette tape, whether it's a USB stick with hundreds of tracks on it, like myself. So I don't think that's actually the issue. What he's talking about is utility. And I do believe that every artist has some form of utility. Whether that's a Zoom call, it doesn't have to be a meet and greet. Whether it's a couple of free tracks, it doesn't have to be merch. If that person's not touring, it doesn't have to be tickets. Just being acknowledged as someone that collects your music can be enough for most people. And the fourth statement about saying, for songs to cost thousands of dollars, well, that certainly was the case with music NFTs. But from my point of view, a lot of investors were in the space at that time, which is why music did. Now, in some respects, he is correct that it is a complete bear market and things have absolutely plummeted. With the advance of AI music, things are going to get far worse. On Facebook, or Meta, as you might want to call it, the amount of people now that aren't true musicians who are trying to get on DSPs, streaming platforms, and are asking questions about how to do it, how to make money from it, because everybody who's a bit naive in the space believes that they can pay their mortgage off with it. That's not always the case, but a lot of people think they can make a lot of money out of just doing some text prompts, releasing a few songs onto Spotify, and it'll automatically happen and everybody will love them. Well, that's just not the case. The music was saturated well before AI music, and now that AI music has kicked in, it's going to make things a hell of a lot harder to actually reach out to, the musician's audience. So their point of view, sorry, I should have said, this is bankless.com, just to let you know. So it says, number one, Coop wasn't asserting that music NFTs had failed for good, just that an early vision of them had. Well, that's okay because a vision can change and swap as many times as it needs to. But he has said music NFTs had failed, so I think that's too much of a strong statement from my liking. Number 2, he said collecting music should be free and accessible, i.e. more frictionless, like enjoying a song on Spotify or YouTube. More frictionless is a very good point, because from the early days of music NFTs, it was incredibly difficult to even just get a digital wallet. It was so hard. You had to put some digital currency on that wallet, whether that's Ethereum or Optimism, Solana, for example. It was really tricky. So I do agree from the frictionless point of view, but I wished he had said that on the statement, because then that makes more sense. Number 3, he warned against roadmap-itis, which is artists having to come up with various perks to bolster their drops and expensive mints. And I understand that, because it turns into a humongous project in its own, especially if you've got digital collectibles as a package that you know, I did like trading cards as music NFTs, and I had like 30 of them, and I had quite a few people wanting to actually collect them, and some paid for them, which was great. But yeah, it was a hell of a lot of work. I've had other music NFT projects where I've, as utility, have given revenue in terms of royalties, which wasn't very successful. A lot of other musicians had success with it, but it was a hell of a lot of work. Understanding what percentages you needed to be a maths expert to be able to do point percentage, depending on how much money someone had been willing to spend to invest in your music. So number 3 was definitely a tricky one. Number 4, lastly, he suggested the old, I can't even say that because I'm so tired, of music NFTs had given way to open edition drops, which are friendlier to artists and fans alike. Sound.xyz did open edition drops, and they were very successful. It's a bit like getting your email addresses, isn't it? You're not paying money for them, for those tracks, but you're giving your email address. But then I query, what is the difference between Bandcamp? I mean, yes, you can resell them in the future, which is why music NFTs, I still believe, have a lot of intrinsic value. However, I'm not all for open edition drops. It certainly gets the fans, but you know, again, it's not making the artist any money, is it? Sound XYZ, I mean, it was so successful, incredibly successful. The amount of revenue musicians were making from their music was huge on that platform. And compared to what it was like, it has really plummeted. I mean, I've put releases out there and they haven't even had hardly any listens. So sound is saturated from my point of view. So regarding that first point, which is regarding that music NFTs had failed, I do think NFTs as basic MP3 files, many of which may prove temporary via IPFS servers, aren't compelling as a distribution avenue if they aren't wrapped up in a larger interesting project or aren't used in more expansive ways. So yeah, again, providing utility is really important. I mean, IPFS, you can have decentralized servers. So, because that was the biggest point about music NFTs, is that people realized that the music was just on servers, and if the servers go down, you've lost your NFT. You've lost your utility for that. So from that point of view, I get why. Certainly with Bitcoin, things have changed, because you're now able to inscribe onto the blockchain itself as a form of a receipt. But to actually get a music NFT on Bitcoin is incredibly challenging, because it has to be really small file size, or they get pointed to a secondary place, such as, you know, a blockchain. So I understand that. An example of the former is The Album, a Pleaserdale-led project where fans can mint an encrypted but unlockable version of Wu-Tang Clan's legendary Once Upon a Time for $1. The album is a collectible in its own right, but the distribution experiment is also compelling and worth backing. As for the latter, consider Sound Capsules, which lets you create simple audio players that hold playlists of Zora music NFTs via ERC 6551. The underlying NFTs may be simple in a technical sense, but the platform over them lets you compose and play with them towards new ends. So I understand that. Again, utility. On to Coop's second point. I do think having music NFTs as free and as accessible as possible is smart in many ways, as that dynamic matches what most people expect when it comes to music UX. And certainly with the opening up of able to just enter your credit card details without having to actually have currency on your digital wallet makes a huge difference. But then he goes on to say, yet there are exceptions. Think of MiFi Studio, which creates fully on-chain musical instruments or music toys, like No Dice, a series of instruments with their loopers, pitches, slicers and sequences entirely on Ethereum. These are innovative digital artifacts, but they're also fun, interactive and scarce. It's fair to charge more than free for these literal collectibles, for example. And that's one of the examples of No Dice there. It's nice to see these new projects are still going on. Whether they gain traction is another thing. As for roadmap itis and expensive music NFT mints, I'd agree that these aren't right for most everyone, though I'd venture a guess that this approach could still work for really famous artists like Taylor Swift or Travis Scott. Yeah, people that have a following, they'd have the muscle to make it work. Then again, these superstars are also the least likely to need or actually care for the composable, programmable indie possibilities around music NFTs, at least as things stand. And I agree with that. The amount of well-known artists that have backed music NFT projects, and it turns out that there have been scams, has really damaged the market. This brings us round to Coop's last point. Music NFTs walked so open editions could run. I dig it, or at least I know what he means. I'm personally a fan of Zora's open edition free mints model, where the artist charges no primary price but collectors pay a tiny Ethereum fee. Wow, that's less than a stream on Spotify. Part of which gets redistributed back to artists, meaning they can earn more from Zora protocol rewards via music drops than they would via streaming platforms. I agree. I am for Zora's open edition free mints model. From my point of view though, it needs to be more than a stream on Spotify for people to really gauge and notice, because musicians would then be like, well, I may as well put it on Zora instead of Spotify. That's just my opinion. At Coop Records, and as I said, Coop basically has his own record company called Coop Records. It's also started subsidising open edition music releases by paying collectors token rewards up through the Boost platform. The $10,000 worth of rewards paid out to date has helped offset collectors' overall minting costs to less than $1 a pop. Not bad. It's a cool approach for others to consider here going forward, I think. From my point of view, it's a difficult balance, because if music NFTs are too cheap, they don't have much value. If music NFTs are too expensive, then they may not get any buyers at all. So, this kind of fractionalization has always been the case with music NFTs, and it is still obviously considering. Zooming out, I find the debate about music NFTs this week encouraging. I'm reminded of how many passionate people care and how many cool experiments are unfolding around this scene right now. It's good to see that there's still a scene. Ultimately, I think the best way forward for music NFTs is to keep leaning into experimentation, new ways, different approaches. In this regard, I know we're in good hands between all of us. It's an interesting one from my point of view, because I love music NFTs, but when was the last time I actually went on OpenSea? It's been months. Last time I had a look at my digital wallet on MetaMask, I was like, I've got so much spam on there, and it really needed cleaning up. And there are still many music NFT platforms out there. Enter.audio is still available. You've got Sound.xyz. Catalog is rebranding itself as a bit less music NFTs and more about collecting. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, I never ever was able to go onto Catalog.works, which was a shame because it was a one-of-one mint. I think that's now subject to change, looking at their last email that they sent over to me. So again, I have applied to be an artist. See what happens. Certainly, if I'm an artist, I will feature Catalog on this channel. The truth is, we've only just begun to dream what music NFTs can be. I'm bullish. And you know what? I think I'm bullish too. A lot of these music platforms, music NFT platforms, have developed, and NFT platforms as well, have developed to include functionality such as genres, etc. However, compared to the AI space, I feel that we're really behind now with music NFTs. The investment is now in the AI space. So it'll be interesting to see if there are AI platforms out there that create music based on AI and then are licensable and maybe even incorporate music NFTs. I know LimeWire tried to do something similar. So let's see what the future holds with music NFTs. But as always, if you're not a sub to the channel, please consider subscribing if you're into music NFTs. I'd love to know what projects you're into, what you like collecting, where you think the music NFT space needs to go. And I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.